Yeah.
the Lord to watch over the rest of our session. Oh, Father, we do thank you that you are our God. We even thank you for the troubles, Lord, that we're experiencing. We just pray that you will take care of everything right now, Lord. I pray that you'll just give our sister Scholastica peace, Lord, right now, even in the midst of all this confusion going on. And we just claim your victory, Jesus, in all these matters. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, thank you. Thank you all for coming, and thank you for the patience. I will be presenting today on a topic that I have titled Give Care Fundraising Plan and Establishment of a Christian Leadership Microfinance Program for Low-Income Women Communities. I don't hear myself. Do you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Can you hear me? Because I don't hear myself.
We hear you.
We're
You hear
hearing
me?
you fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I would like to minimize the side of my screen. Okay. So I'm talking today about Give Care, and I'm looking at a fundraising plan and establishment of a Christian Leadership Microfinance Program for low-income women communities in Nigeria. And what has informed this title? A little bit background about myself. So the research really is a report of my work over the last 15 years. Growing up in Nigeria, poverty in the midst of plenty. I have the elephant icon there because Nigeria is like the proverbial elephant. Whatever part of it you touch is your experience. So I call it poverty in the midst of plenty. A background on Africa, we have, according to various statistics, a projected economy income of about $29 trillion by 2050. And with over 415 million people living in Africa, we have 6 out of 10 people living in poor rural areas. Now, Africa has one of the fastest growing economies. Yet when you contrast, the fact that they have rich agriculture and we're attracting foreign investments, all kinds of natural resources, yet a lot of poverty, it just brings a lot of complexities to the mind. I remember as a student in the University of Benin, a student of economics, I would always ask myself when I'm being taught in class, the production equation. Why do you have so many people, land, labor, capital, on the working side, and then on the receiving side, you have very few that receive the dividends of production? And as a child, as a young adult growing up, I always would be seeking to bring resolution to that problem. Now, Give Care was really born when I had contacts with some librarians. The country was at war, and at the time they were flooding Nigeria in loads of buses, fleeing terror from their countries. And their embassy was right across from my office. They were on the floors, they were laying on the streets, and a lot of women were so affected. A few had lost their husbands in the process, and I would take aids to them back and forth. And after a while, I realized that it wasn't sustainable. Even the ambassador had thrown up his arms in the air because the situation was really, it was very difficult. And so I tried microfinance as an intervention. because my funds would not be able to bring bread and water every day forever. And it worked magically. And as a result, when I saw the joy, I saw people being able to fend for themselves. I saw people that were young people that were near prostitution situations, making better choices. I asked the Lord, I said, can we take this to many more people? Because Africa is full of these statistics. And over the last 15 years, it has grown from one woman to a few women, several women. And the research today is simple. There's so many things that I have learned over the years, and I'm saying I've seen great results. And the research for me was an opportunity to test the validity of a model that I had developed over the years, to fine-tune it, to prove its validity, and then hopefully be able to raise capacity to test on 50 new intakes and improve upon it again. And that's what I always do, improve. And I believe that is one of the things that the Lord will be using to reach a vast majority of the poor in Nigeria. So I have a concern for women, and my concern for women, it's deeper than the statistics. For example, as I've studied for my literature review, the studies show that we have 70% of Nigerians poor as women, and they live in rural communities. And that's a World Bank report, by the way. It also shows that children are also affected. Now, we have proven in the study that entrepreneurial activities are essential for improving conditions of life, like I have seen in my experience with Gift Care in these rural areas. Now, but the rural areas, and again, the women are passionate. It's a great passion in my heart because it's just a picture of the devastation and poverty that I feel led to solve. I find a lot of situations of culture occasioned discriminations, both from the eye view of the women and also the community. And I see that in a world that's kind of patriarchal in nature, we find that men have more access to resources than women. So even if microfinance has such a great potential to yield results and lift people out of poverty, women are still not being able to reap the benefits of microfinance. And not just women, by the way, but women more so. So I have a little slide here that tries to just summarize the problem. In the rural areas, we have poor access to capital. Now, Nigeria is a big country, and you have so many people grappling for just so much funds. But even still worse in the underserved communities. And there you have issues of limited access to quality education, financial education is poor, lack of basic infrastructure, definitely. And what we see is there's insufficient funds for business, the financial discipline, low level of literacy, lack of business visibility because the infrastructure and the support is not there, makes it, compromises the impact of women being able to realize this, the benefits of microfinance. So my discovery over the years, because I would just take, funds, whenever I have funds and I will give to women, I will see results, I will be so excited. But I also realized that it was more than just giving money. That the kind of support that women require because of the nature of the challenges they have is multidimensional. And when I say multidimensional, I'm talking about material, I'm talking about emotional, and I'm also talking about spiritual deficiency as well. And I realized that to look or view poverty and microfinance as a tool to bring resolution just from a one-sided angle would not be wholesome and achieve the degree of success that I know that microfinance could yield. So Give Care over the years has investigated and had the opportunities to do several things with several people and have put together a model. And the way I describe our purpose is a holistic Christ-centered empowerment program that uses entrepreneurship as a vehicle for leadership development through microfinance. Now, I'm deliberate when I say leadership development because, in my opinion, what I want to see for each woman is self-esteem developed. The brokenness over the years of abuse and sometimes being, looked upon or treated without it being said as a second-class citizen in a way, requires that full restoration to be able to push will together with resources to beautifully contribute of herself to whatever community she finds herself, particularly the poor rural communities. So our mission is to empower poor and vulnerable women to become Christ-like, self-sustainable in their business activities, and wholesome participators in community leadership. One of the slides that I didn't speak to is the impact of technology in our present day world. And Give Care would leverage mobile technology, simple mobile phones, web-based tools to create greater access to capital. And this will help to facilitate better business management. A lot of things are done on the phone these days. And with the kind of capacity we have in rural areas, I'm seeing the benefit of funds transfer on the phones, selling on the phones, so many things that mobile technology can do. And Give Care has developed relationships to do this for women and families in low-income areas. And the expectation and the hope is that we will enhance women's economic participation and promote gender equality. Hopefully, this will improve household well-being and promote spiritual and cultural transformation. I'm taking time to just say a little bit about Give Care because as I go into my research methodology, what I'm really going to be doing is looking at other microfinance programs that are available and have been functioning and how it compares to the model that Give Care has adopted. Now, research has shown that when we talk about comprehensive approach to poverty, to deal with the multidimensional nature of poverty, that it's shown that it's not just something you assume or you're thinking. It's shown that it's a reality, and so the way that we work, and I have had to work over the years, is a three-pronged approach: lending, coaching and training, and building community. We have this powerful saying, everything in community is connected, and everything is connected in community. That's the canvas. It's a spirit of sharing upon which the model is built. Everything is in community is connected, and everything is connected in community. So we simply assess before we give loans. We coach and train, and that is empowerment, business skills, but not just business skills, a robust curriculum that looks at civic education. How does a woman engage her community? How does a woman lend her voice to be a participator in building her immediate environment? We look at Christian discipleship as well, because I, as a Christian, I firmly believe that that element of Christ and the element that the Spirit of Christ brings in a person's life is essential if there will be true resolution, or, if you will, solution in totality to the issue of poverty. And as we train the mind and encourage Christian character, Christian leadership character, that there's an empowerment that goes further and deeper than the wounds and the challenges that we face in Africa and underserved communities. And it is the totality of that that is able to deliver the kind of help that pulls low-income women in rural areas out of poverty. So I say build community is the last prong, because Give Care adopts a community approach. One person, one organization is not sufficient to deliver solutions that would be lasting and enduring. And so we call collaborators that we work with enablers, and there are a whole number of them. So in the components of my research, there are three parts. The core is a fundraising element to be able to provide this combo training to 50 new women. And so we're looking at the lending, but we're also looking at training, coaching, and implementing the comprehensive Christian leadership curriculum. And we're looking at the opportunity to continue this at a larger scale to facilitate what we call the win-win network, Women in Need Win, and the establishment of a multi-purpose resource center. My idea is these ideas that I have done in bits and pieces over the years, the research has given me an opportunity to work with a group of women with the money I raise over a period of time, 6 to 8 months per circle, and actually track and document repeatedly over 3 cycles the impact of holistic microfinance. So the context of my project, the target is Gwari, Abuja, and Imala, Ogun State. And these are the North Central and the Southeastern communities in Nigeria. They both have the same characteristics. They were once very instrumental and politically relevant communities. And then suddenly, through political zoning, they became irrelevant, pushed to the backside. Like the Gwaris in Abuja were the first dwellers in Abuja, but they've been pushed to the outskirts when Abuja became the Federal Capital Territory. And the same thing with Imala. So what you see is both communities are blessed with natural resources, but there is you see that pain of despair, devastation, abandonment. And so they look more like squalor areas. Now, I have chosen those communities because that's what I'm called to do. And it's the kind of communities that the microfinance would do a whole lot of good for. So if you see on the screen, it's just a mention of all a listing of we call them signs of need: unemployment, underemployment, literacy, poor education, poor self-awareness, gender inequality issues, political marginalization of the community, poverty in the land and in the church, poor economic and social infrastructure, definitely poor household well-being. And just to quickly mention that the spiritual landscape is such that the pastors will say to me, the members are poor, pray that they have money, that the work of God can move forward. And so the theological basis for the project is God cares for his people. And so I do. And God's will for community is shalom, and it requires much more than very brilliant tools and proven natural principles. We need the power, the holistic power of God, the power of the Holy Spirit, his word, to be able to do the kind of things, enduring change that's required. Now, there are also signs of hope, not just signs of need, and those are my confirmation or my clues. In as much as there's despair, there's a strong community culture at the same time. It's more like a contrast. The women love to trade, and they demonstrate the ability and willingness to do so. And there's some kind of hopefulness even in the midst of despair. And I see that there's a yearning for spirituality. And God has opened the door to lots of technological advancement in our day and in Africa, and has blessed us with a partner that can make a lot of the things that I see through mobile technology affordable, cheap, possible in these communities. So I'm going into these communities with all of these clear in my mind. So my research methodology was to assess I was going in to assess the impact of microfinance, different types of programs. And when I use the word microfinance, I'm talking about non-profits, banking institutions, non-bank institutions that offer financial services for the purpose of entrepreneurial activities and poverty alleviation. And so my research was a mixed study, really, utilizing quantitative and qualitative data to assess the effectiveness of microfinance as a poverty alleviation and leadership development tool for low-income rural entrepreneurs. And I have defined the target area. So what I did was employ the 2 surveys and personal interviews to obtain data. I administered survey questions, 39 questions, 20 of them to low-income female entrepreneurs. Now, 2 surveys. So one survey was for low-income females, and the other survey was for the microfinance institutions themselves. And the idea was to gather data from both to see what the challenges on each side were in order to improve the ability to achieve success together. So 20 questions were applied in the survey for the low-income entrepreneurs, 54 of them, and 19 questions to 26 microfinance institutions. And I also obtained data using interviews with 20 respondents. And I selected 10 respondents each from the poor, low-income women and from the microfinance institutions. And it was deliberate to do a combination of approaches, because in maximum variation, when you use maximum variation, which is what I was trying to do, you're able to get information from different sources to get a deeper understanding and insight, different perspectives to the same truth or facts. And so my research questions helped me to answer the research problem, and which is that there is a need for a holistic microfinance model that incorporates a comprehensive Bible-based training, curriculum, basic infrastructure development, a support network of services, and advocacy, together working as a comprehensive solution to female poverty and the issue of marginalization in community leadership. The questions also help me to assess the effectiveness of MFIs as they right now work in reducing female poverty and enhancing poor women's entrepreneurial success and leadership. So my research instrument was a tool called Question Pro software, which I used to collect and analyze the data. The confidence interval for the software was set at 95%, which is the standard, and I used descriptive analysis together with simple graphic analysis to analyze the data that I used in the study. So, of course, I used both publishing questions on the internet and hand paper surveys to collect data from my target group. So again, I would look briefly at the results. The socioeconomic characteristics of the women that I did ask questions for and interview, you can see on your screen. Basically, the figures you see with red show the larger numbers where you have the larger percentage, the dominance. So in terms of the age, you had more women that were less than 40, but it was a good spread across the age group between 40 and 60, but a little bit more of them at 40. Most of them were married, like you see, and widowed. And that tells a lot about women trying to feed their families. So in business experience, it was a range from 10 to like 20 years. And the average monthly income was all of them really low income. There were several questions that were asked that focused on trying to find out the challenges of women in business and community leadership. And I'm focusing for the purpose of the survey on two key questions that summarizes them all. So we looked at the entrepreneurship drive. How will you describe, the question was asked, your level of entrepreneurship drive in business? And this question considered 16 factors that impact respondents' level of entrepreneurship drive. Because if you're going to help women improve through business, then you have to know the things that motivate or demotivate them. And so the factors were the distance between home and market area. Are you in a rural location? Does that affect the encouraging, enabling environment, unstable economy, self-realization, wanting autonomy, entrepreneurial experience? And what I found out was most of the people out of the 16 factors were moderately and highly impacted by the distance. What you see listed on the screen were those that affected the morale or the motivation of women. And I took note of those. And it's interesting that these are really the issues that make business challenging for low-income entrepreneurs in rural areas to engage. The environment is, as it were, not developed, infrastructure is poor, access to capital, the economy is unstable, and it's important that they have entrepreneurial experience, and this is what most of them had picked. We also looked at the 15 barriers to poor female entrepreneurs' drive. I tried to find out if you were going to rank how important it is certain barriers are to your success as an entrepreneur, what would those be in order of importance? So I have this blocking my screen. From the 15 barriers, the results show that household chores was highest. And this speaks to the challenges, again, of women trying to combine family life and work life. Cultural roles and the help, therefore, that they need. The liquidity and financial problems, that access to capital is truly a challenge. Marketing problems, support services, high level of competition, poor infrastructure and business environment in the order of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 13. The study cuts off at 9 as to the impact that was selected as important in terms of its effect on women's entrepreneurial success. So everything you see here, poor infrastructure and business environment, gaining the acceptance and respect of people, that's a cultural issue. They talked about no time for training, no time to upgrade their skills. And they talked about the lack of entrepreneurial activities, of entrepreneurial experience. And the last that qualified was poor motivation. I found out certain things that was really very interesting. When you look at the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13, you begin to see like a conflict. Being a woman was ranked low at 10, and cultural or religious barriers was ranked at 13. And so when you contrast that with the first slide, household chores at number 1, and a number of things that I had information to hear during the interviews, it made me understand that the cultural challenges, understanding how culture is so deeply ingrained that even the women are not able to, they're not able to tell that they're looking at certain issues from a cultural eye view that works against them, just becomes more and more enlightening, and needing us to educate and help them demystify the issues of how community or their cultural barriers affect them, and to be able to deal with them. So I asked one more question about their training and leadership. And what I found also was a lot of them had said, we do want, 65% of them have said, we do want a comprehensive training that helps us to engage the community better, civic education, leadership skills, that helps us to do business better, that helps us with social skills. But then when I asked, how have you gone through any training? How has your training been? They said, oh yes, we have. The questionnaires are just yes and no. So a lot of people ticked yes, ticked no. When we had the interview sessions, what I saw was the women began to explain that the 34% that said we don't think we need training, they began to explain that we've received a lot of some training, but the training is theoretical, and we do not see that it translates to revenue or translates to enhancing our entrepreneurial success. So what was coming out was we would need training that's practical, relevant, applicable, and that translates to loans and resources that we need. When I also spoke about leadership development, many of them had said, oh, we help out in church and we help out in community. But what also came out is they fall out of so many groups. And I'm like, why? And they say, well, whenever I try to instruct or I try to give my opinion, some of the men don't seem to like it. And they mentioned the home association meeting. And so I just prefer to be passive and enjoy my women's forum. And that shows to me that more skills of engagement instead of quitting is useful for women to be able to blossom and engage community, even their business is better. So in a summary, what we are seeing is I'm trying to speed up because of the time. In a summary, what I'm seeing is I would mention just one thing about the loans. 70% of them had loans, but some of them, 30% of them, the small sample size we have, were afraid to take loans. And it was because they had heard so much about people's loans going bad, and then, you know, their businesses being lost or their properties taken. But there were issues about too many fees, too many requirements for collateral, monthly payments, business savings, that it becomes difficult at some point to keep up. So the appeal or the need continues to be not just access to loans, but access to affordable, low interest capital loans. So what I heard them say in a summary is our interests are high, well-priced loans that helps us systematically expand our businesses is what we need. Our loans are small, and oftentimes we don't get another injection, maybe till another calendar year. So the poverty we are trying to get out of it's taking a lot of time. It's slow. The markets are small. We need access to larger markets, and in order to increase our sales and expand our business. Of course, we lack basic infrastructure, such as good transportation and adequate storage. As a result, there are bad sales and profits sometimes. So we lack adequate training and business support services, such as marketing, entrepreneurial support, in order to be able to operate our businesses efficiently and profitably. Training needs, like I said before, to translate into securing loans. And so quickly, I'd like to contrast that with the outcome of my interviews and the survey results from the microfinance organizations themselves. There were a mixture of them from different institutions, both nonprofits and banking institutions. And I asked questions about their funding objectives. And if you look at the screen, you will see that majority of them have entrepreneurial competence. I want to reduce poverty. I want to create access to capital. I want to increase entrepreneurial opportunities as big on their list. But when I look closely, I see that providing financial services to the unbanked is really very small, just 7.41%. Increasing female gender participation in business is just 7% of the banks out of the 26 banks plus 1036 that were asked questions and interviewed. And that's showing a gap that, you know, there's a depth of services to the unbanked and also a depth of services to including female gender participation, supporting them in business activities. I asked them also about how they define poverty. And it would amaze you to know that 90% said, well, poverty is deficiency in material needs, and that's right. 9.5% say I define it also as emotional deficiency. None of them at all looked at the fact that there could be poverty of spirit, which informs me that their approach towards dealing with this problem and bringing solutions to women's poverty is one-sided and is material. And is underscoring, because we know that it's a much deeper problem. It's underscoring the need for a framework and an understanding that fleshes out solutions beyond just the natural, the material, and definitely the emotional. When I looked at the products and services, it was not strange why 65% of them give business loans, because in their minds, that's the solution. 20% counsel also and mentor, but business skills training is right there at the bottom. Now, the other questions about on-ramps, we're just trying to determine deeper things on if they connect entrepreneurs to, you know, hands-on opportunities for service in community. And that was slightly 50-50. But we see here why there could be challenges, because there's a focus on loans, but the other services are poor. Now, I looked at the impact of MFIs on poor female entrepreneurs' success. And when they were answering the questions on poverty, what I heard them say is, from the statistics, our program reduced poverty maybe by 33%. 33% of them said, well, highly. Moderately was just 22%. But more of them said, well, I think it's fair. And so they by themselves judged the impact of their programs fair. When I asked them, what about leadership development? Because when we say leadership development, we're looking at the total capacity for a woman to take charge and to participate. Now, 53% of them said, well, fair, and some even do not know. So those were the results in terms of their appreciation of their impact. And when I also asked them the questions about their personal challenges, their challenges as organizations lending to women, and what they said was, well, they don't have collaterals. It's difficult for them to provide guarantors. The cost of managing little loans is really high. And it's a lot of risk for us, because they are in places where, with the kind of infrastructure they have, will they be able to pay back the loans? And these are sentiments and real questions. But at the end of the day, they made some confessions. They said, look, we really will just want to redeem people that can redeem the loans. It's true that we want to be a part of what the government is saying, you know, women equality, develop the underserved people, but the risk is high. And their confessions were, we really do not care, honestly, even when we have all those wonderful objectives, whether it's a woman or man we're lending. And they had mentioned also They are not particular about what they use the money for, but then they're supposed to be focused on microfinance. And they had said also, we prefer to serve the urban and the suburban and not the rural areas. In short, we follow the money. And these are some of the concerns these are some of the concerns for the effectiveness of MFIs and just the challenges they face in serving. So the findings, low-income female entrepreneurs need better entrepreneurial and leadership skills for sure. But we do not have MFIs that, not all of them, but a considerable majority to readily providing them. There's greater and consistent access to low-interest capital that low-income female entrepreneurs need in order to systematically and gradually expand their business ventures. But you have fewer MFIs that serve the rural areas, so you don't have capital for them. So what the research study is recommending is undoubtedly the capacity of female entrepreneurs and microfinance institutions both need to be built. It takes special skills to serve low-income people. And so the recommendation is, when we talk about working in community, a systems approach where MFIs can work together. When I say MFIs, I mean microfinance institutions of all types, where they can work together across urban and rural communities to share resources. It needs to be encouraged, and that's the Give Care model, working in community. We recommend a network approach where female entrepreneurs also, like with the model of the win-win network, share resources, form a bigger voice for advocacy, so that they're able to, encourage, advocate for more favorable laws for access to better and affordable capital. That needs to be encouraged. So what I did was put the two together, and I said, what if I'm developing a fundraising plan? What are the elements, therefore, do I need to focus on? Now, from the different things that I identified, you notice that they fall under these three prongs: lending, low access to capital. They fall under the training. They fall under the need for community and a network approach. They fall under those. And so what I did with the fundraising, the fund mobilization plan, was to use the insights to flesh out and make sure that all the items that need to be addressed are funded. Now, I do not want to go into necessarily all the development process that I went through in developing the plan. But you can see on the screen where I had 15 stakeholders in meetings that we had discussed together through on-site and online collaborations. And as a Christian organization, fundraising values and policies were adopted. The typical was the Louisiana standard, because I see fundraising as a ministry, not as begging. And the need to be able to cultivate as giver and server the attitude of service and fundraising. Now, from the stakeholders forum, I was able to get 15 stakeholders made up of individuals and organizations to commit to the process even after now, in building the way forward and still fleshing out the fund mobilization plan. So our goal for the fundraising is $82,200, both in cash and kind. And the strategy employs a combination of things to be able to deliver service at low cost. And the combination of things include fees, corporate donor relationships, grants, broad base of small gifts, and kind donations. Now, our hope in Gift Care is we will not have to depend on donations, funds, donations and subsidies for a long time, that gap will be reduced with both fee for service and community participation in order that the organization is sustainable. So when you look at the screen and the fund strategy, my desire is I have the budget in the thesis. So for fees, it will be about 4,000 corporate relations donor relations. We have corporate partners who are also Christian organizations in technology, in missions, and in different aspects of finance that together would be able to support elements of our work. And I would also seek grants to the tune of 35,000 and broad-based gifts and kind donations in kind. And the needs are outlined to be able to get the resource center and also the capital, training, and accessories for the program package for the women. I detail a little bit of where the corporate funds are coming from. And a Christian Development Foundation is a partner that Gift Care manages their mission, microfinance mission, to the same community, one of the communities where I work, which is a target for this research. And BARA is a technology group. It's a for-profit, but it has a mission orientation. And they are partners in technology. And together, just the way it's spelled out, we would, I hope to raise the funds in that manner. And we're having discussions already. Danjuma Foundation and Global Fund for Women, amongst others, are some that I've targeted for grants. So that's the strategy in terms of how the funds is split. Now we're also going to look at a multimedia strategy in terms of marketing. So we have our website and our online blog. Now a lot's not happening there right now because much more is on our Imala project website. And I have a team that's integrating both to be able to show videos, activities, but also be able to communicate with a greater and larger online community that can participate in the work. In Appendix 9 in my project, I detail a communication plan by schedule, timing, and activity on how the board will meet commencing December to be able to implement the plan. And details are in that appendix. Now, in concluding today, definitely it's clear in my mind that training is not something just to be talked about or a rhetoric, we hear about all the time, training. But that there's training that actually identifies the elements that are important to the target group, and it's relevant, it's hands-on, it's necessary for leadership effectiveness and for business success. So GiveCare's holistic microfinance program definitely is useful among, in the midst of the landscape of what we're seeing and the kind of services that we are getting. It's useful for the target group and for the effectiveness of microfinance to realize its benefits. Poor rural communities in Nigeria are not well funded, and poor female rural entrepreneurs do need consistent access to low interest loans. So basic infrastructure will only be possible, not because GiveCare has all that it needs to do all of this, but because we are saying that everyone is connected in community, and our role is one of a facilitator. Our core is our training, our lending, but we have a strong transformation agenda that is sounding the alarm to say everyone come together. We are connected in community, and in community we are connected. So we are saying that is something that is needed actually in almost in every community of the world, and we're sounding that alarm. What we are doing is not new, but is skillfully combining the elements of what's needed to deliver fresh solutions. It's what you call bundling. So I would, although the study was to determine the holistic impact of the factors that we mentioned on entrepreneurial success, how does, a woman's cultural orientation, things that she faces, the lack of funds, it was to determine the whole thing, the holistic impact of it. I'm thinking that for further research, other researchers could consider set specific factors in the research model to see if there are any certain entrepreneurial tendencies that could affect their effectiveness. And for example, can concentrate on a specific trade that may help determine whether engaging in one trade as against another could, affect the level of entrepreneurial experience, because communities are different, and sometimes, that could be just something to look at. So I would say that poor rural communities need stronger financial institutions for them to thrive and flourish. And definitely a holistic model would promote a financial systems approach to rural finance. And this would lead to the growth in the financial sector and the more favorable financial environment where poor female rural entrepreneurs can thrive and flourish. So when we talk about a systems approach, what we're saying is togetherness, and it makes the weaker ones connecting with smaller MFIs in the rural areas, have both the technical support they need and more resources they need to flow to those areas. So a systems approach. We believe that poor rural communities will blossom when there's equitable redistribution of resources and female gender participation in community leadership. I've always believed that the creation of both the male and the female was not by error. God designed it to be a beautiful combination to bring whole blossoming to communities. And if one gender is marginalized by choice or, ignorance, it is the responsibility lies on those that may know or be given the burden to help correct the situation. So at this point, I would just mention that there were things that I did learn. I always talk about, network approach and how GiveCare has succeeded in its work through network approach. And I was going in there with the mind of creating all kinds of groups. But when I got there, I saw that there were already those groups. And all that I needed to do was really come alongside them to facilitate and to strengthen. And I also learned through my studies here at BGU I was able to be sharper in my focus in understanding my own leadership. So from the perspective of the prophetic and the Shalom transformational leadership, I was able to articulate my call and be more effective in sounding the alarm and in staying strong and true and speaking truth to power. Now, there's a French word that I like so much. It says, behavior changes, results change behavior. One of the benefits of the grief care model is that we put our motivation point, which is giving the funds, at the center of a lot of demands, good and healthy demands. So you don't get a loan if you don't do what you're supposed to do. You don't, follow the things that you are being taught. And people are always afraid or impatient with change. But what I noticed is, as they began to see the benefits of implementing the things that they've been taught because they wanted the loan so bad, they're seeing the output in their businesses. And we don't have to push them, the batches that we have funded so far, we don't have to push them so much because they see the results. So ownership, results also bring ownership. And I'm seeing that the more people are being compelled to do things that they should do, and they're changing because they see results, a critical mass is being raised, and this promotes innovation diffusion. So it makes people embrace easier. We always go into a community saying, I want to change the world. And I'm glad for some of the teachings that I received about looking out for signs of hope and signs of need. Because what I realized is my eyes were open to identify the assets that the community had. And what that did for me was I could see God in his word, and all I had to do was join him there. So these were lessons that were very helpful for me because of my work here at my studies here and the experience of other colleagues and relationships that have been built over time. Thank you, and I would like to stop at this point.
Okay, thank you, Scholastica. Very, very, very nice. I know you're really trying to get a lot into a short period of time. I really appreciate you taking us through that time. Okay, we're going to be a little short on time tonight. So I've got a couple other issues I've got to get into, but I would like to spend a little bit of time on discussion. If there's issues that you would kind of feel we could bring up, I think that would be helpful right now. And Scholastica would be happy to answer any questions that anyone would have at this time. And let me ask, Dr. Virginia, did you get in? I think that's you.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Okay, I'm just doing a little typing here. You guys are free to ask questions. Let me just get a few points of clarity for me. I'm always wanting to call you Scholastica. Scholastica. As I understand it, well, tell me what will be involved in the plan that you want to present to your board in December. What are the main components of that plan? I mean, you're looking at a development plan, a communication plan. Just talk that through for me just a minute so I understand that.
Okay, so in December, I'm going to communicate to them the fundraising budget, the budget that we have developed,
Mhm.
and the methods that we have put together in terms of being able to raise it and what those activities would be like. Because you would recall in my thesis, the fundraising part is a phase one, and the implementation is like a postdoctoral work. So the communication plan is really going to focus on what activities and how are we going to make it real? Are we going to make it real? Are we going to be able to achieve our goal of the 82,000? Yeah. Of course, they are aware of the program itself in terms of what the women benefits and how we want to track the progress. They are aware of that. But the real focus of the meeting is actually activating the process of raising the funds.
Okay. Has the organization been involved in major fundraising strategies in the past?
Well, I have served as a development director over the years, and I have, I have a partner organization also that is involved with some major fundraising for missions as well. But besides that, the rest groups are private sector organizations that do have a mission orientation and would want to see how they can be a part of a private sector and social partnership.
Okay. So I'm thinking that this would probably be the largest fundraising strategy that Give Care has actually engaged in. Would that be true?
Yes, Give Care as an organization, yes.
Okay, that's helpful. In terms of the organization, Give Care, what size? I mean, when I used to work with I was the development director at a gospel rescue mission over in Montana. What would you say is the size of the database that Give Care currently has in terms of potential donors, people that they're in communication with? What would the size of that be at this point in time?
I would say fair to average. Now, in terms of number, it will be average, but in terms of influence, it will be really good. You know how you have a few people that are high net worth people.
Right.
What God has done for us is connect us with organizations and individuals that are committed to this and themselves have a good network as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's another organization that we used to work with called Mission Increase. Have you ever worked with them?
No.
They're here in the States. They try to come alongside organizations, especially smaller organizations, and just give them a lot of strategies. And they're also a granting organization themselves. Yeah. But Mission Increase, they're called. Probably be one you might want to look up in the future.
Okay. Sure.
Okay, let's have some other questions from folks around the virtual table here.
Hello, Scholastica.
Hello.
Okay, Dr. Bill, thank you so much for giving me instruction on how to access the Zoom room.
Right.
Okay, first of all, I want to congratulate Scholastica. You did, your research well. You covered all aspects practically of, the microfinance operations and the challenges of the microfinance institutions. And you are right in saying that some of the microfinance institutions, especially those banks that are privately owned, tend to focus more on the loans given and how they can recoup the loans, including the interest that they gave out. Okay, so and that's why the problem that the challenge that they normally face, is they don't have any uh, funds allocated for leadership development or in training, which we call cost center. So I think Give Care has to influence all these microfinance institutions in Nigeria, and perhaps you can set up a network organization in the future with all the microfinance organizations to be part of that to be part of that network, and then because you will lead in establishing this network organization, then you will have all the liberty to to put in a spiritual development program, which these member organizations can access. And then secondly, for the training, I think Give Care should also, focus on building the capacity of your staff, because your staff or the frontliners should be the first to be, to be equipped on how to do the training more effectively, and they should really integrate evangelism, love for Jesus, in that even in technical training. So that's my advice, for future activities of Give Care. But thank you, because Scholastica is so young, so she can do a lot of things in Nigeria. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, Scholastica, congratulations, and an enormous job there that you are doing in Nigeria, and definitely from your presentation, it's clear it's an enormous work. On one of your slides, it showed that the total cost of your fundraising is 82,000. I was kind of wanting to know, is that the cost of the fundraising, or is that the amount that you want to raise as an initial seed for the microfinance?
Yeah. Thank you for the question. The 82,200 is the initial seed specifically for the training of the 50 women. It's like the seed money for that particular project. And that's what's for. It's really, for me, it's really focused at getting, me to track the information that I really want to learn more about. So that's what I feel led to focus on.
Scholastica. So I think part of the 80,000 is the microfinance fund.
Yes.
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 So if that money goes to training, so that will be wiped out in 1 or 2 years. So I think I remember, part of that 80,000 will be used to lending money to the women, right?
Yeah. So it's
Okay.
it's like 500 per participant, and there is a token built in there that covers the training. However,
Yes.
because it's a revolving loan and it's not a grant, the
Yes.
money is coming back to
Agree.
train more. So it's not, the money is not going to be lost, and we're
Yes.
looking more.
Yes, 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 yes.
And we're having, I'm skillfully doing a lot of fundraising in kind so that we're having support other ways.
Yes. Dr. Sam and Dr. Bill, Scholastica will have a viability plan, that will show, I think to her board, how those funds will come back and how those funds in the future will finance the future training of these women. Am I right, Scholastica?
Right. So you would see in my research, we have a business module where upon the loans that are being given, like every microfinance, there is a token for interest, which is a slow growth of the loan itself.
Yes.
But there are also we call them value-based offerings.
Agree.
Services that we are providing in the community, like help desks that not just our participants can benefit, but others that may not even be in the low income brackets. So that's a for-profit module, if you will, that's also servicing the organization. Recently, Give Care established a bank, and you will see that in my thesis. We took the opportunity of having no financial service at all. There's no institution in that community. So we have partnered with one of the largest banks in Nigeria, and we actually have a franchise, if you will, like a franchise. And so you can imagine that it's serving the schools, it's serving other merchants, it's serving people in neighboring communities. So these are very creative ways that Give Care is working to make sure that we are not dependent just on grants. So before the seed funds will be exhausted, in my strategy plan at the last appendix of the document, we would have also developed a plan to grow, even 3 times the size of where we begin from. And that's the reason I'm carrying along with me strategic partners, both for-profit and private sector, that are kingdom-minded all the way.
Yeah. Okay, the good thing is Give Care is a social enterprise model, which means that all donations that would come in to Give Care will grow. It's like basically it's applying the principles of the parable of the talents, that any free money that comes in to Give Care will grow and will multiply and will continue to impact poor women in Nigeria.
Yes, absolutely. That's the plan. I also believe in the principle of the small seed, where you get everybody in community. Remember the cup of rice fundraising strategy?
Mm-hmm.
I love that. That was one of the best experiences I had in class, the cup of rice, where I think it was one of the Asian communities. At the beginning, 80% of their funds, or 100% probably, was coming from international donations. And then they had the orientation that no one is poor, everyone has something to give.
Yeah.
And they were able to spread the understanding that, your cup of rice is good enough. And it built a spirit of not just, it built a spirit of giving, of belonging, of hope, of self-worth. And tracking over time, they became one of the greatest donors even to other communities and other mission fields. And they reduced, I believe, almost completely their international funding. I have that vision for Nigeria, that I do not think that God's way is always, is to be dependent on aid, but to encourage the people to give so that they also can be blessed and together be able to locally resource ourselves. Yeah.
I have a question, Scholastica. Is Give Care the only Christian microfinance NGO in Nigeria?
I haven't heard of another, but it's not the only one, to the extent that there are small church groups, but they're very few.
Okay.
And that's one of my interests. There are very few, and the ones I know are church-based, and Nigeria is a huge, huge country. And what I find out is that because microfinance is an area where you need expertise,
Yes.
you find that not many people can come in to do it well. So you just find many times it's a secular affair. So I haven't really learned of another group that's not tied to a church in that sense, and is staying as a Christian, Christ-centered organization to run this professionally. This is one of the things that motivated me to engage this.
Okay.
Oscar, just a point of clarification there. During your presentation, you said one of the lessons you learned was that you went in to start a microfinance, and when you came in, you found that there was already work going. So I just wanted to clarify that, and you said you added on and that you wanted to walk alongside them, support them, and bring them together. So I just wanted to clarify there. So is there more work done in the area of microfinance, or you are bringing something that is not widely spread in the areas you are operating?
Okay, what I was referring to in that statement was community groups, like people already self-organized into small groups, not microfinance groups. So in my mind, I have found very successful when you have people in little teams and you can work with them and impact them. It's closer, it's warm. And so when I got there, I'd had all, some plans written. You're going to meet the women, you're going to meet this, you're going to look for that trading group, you're going to look for this trading group, and you're going to, form them and encourage them along specific trade lines. But when I got there, I found out that they were not registered groups, or they didn't do it intentionally. But for example, fish sellers were already having some kind of conversations and an unorganized but organized way, where they would sell things among themselves to make sure that they didn't have a market glut, for example. So even if there was no formal association, the women will say, you will sell 3 days of the week. I will sell 3 days of the week. So they had something that brought them together. And so I from my learning, I didn't want to start making any new groups. I wanted to come into the natural element of the community and just layer on the help that I am bringing through groups already operating that exist. So that was what I was talking about. For microfinance particularly, there is a great need, a very, very, very great need. Extremely. They have, like I said, no bank until we had brought one there. And they have one credit union, which operates really out of the capital. And so you do the math, and So it's a program. They have embraced what we're doing, and I'm hoping that God will help us to increase.
Wonderful. There's some tools definitely BGU is famous for, like the ABCD asset-based or the appreciative inquiry of trying to get to know the resources in the area, the strength, the things already on ground that the tools you can use. And I'm wondering whether you've taken advantage of those to really improve your situation, but also to change your plan in case what you expected to find on ground is different from actually what's happening on the ground. So I just wanted to, be clear if you have any plan changes or the plans are still as you laid them out at the start of your project?
One thing that the Lord did was send me into this community just at the same time that I was finishing the Fresno Overture. And so you can imagine that with all the knowledge from Fresno, I was going into the community, not trying to give them what I thought that they needed because I'm an economist and I'm a business management person. I was going with the mind from that overture to look for where the Lord was working, to observe what the signs of hopes are and the signs of need. And so in my plan, I've not had to change much at all. I'm actually learning more. I went in with a learning attitude. Microfinance is pretty straightforward, but we are doing a holistic approach. So I'm learning and I'm listening and I'm infusing my microfinance strategy just at the core, in the midst, at the center of what the community really needs. It's like in the life of the community. and that's why I think the growth has been much. The success has been much so far.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry.
You rightly said, of course, that you're giving more than money, and definitely theology of work encompasses. I think it's foundation also to the work that you are doing in the community, as people realize who they are and what God has created them to be, and how or what they bring to the table. And so we want to commend you definitely for the great job done there.
And another thing is you may want to include, the advocacy part in the near future Scholastica, because as a microfinance development worker, we know that the raw material being used in microfinance is money. And the need for microfinance is huge, especially in rural areas. Then we may want to include the government in this work. But we just can't include your government if there is no law that covers microfinance as a poverty alleviation national strategy.
Yeah.
So if you are able in the future to create, or establish this win-win, the network that you are talking about in your research, in your study, if you are able to establish them, then you can have a voice. And if you have a big voice in Nigeria, then the government will listen to you. So you may want to create a law or push for a law for microfinance NGOs, so that more government resources would come in to rural areas. Because if there is a law, then the government,
Yeah.
has to generate funds, to support, that law.
You're absolutely right. If you were here earlier, I talked about the three-pronged approach that forms the Give Care model.
Yes.
And one of it is community building and advocacy. They go together. There's no way to do development work without advocacy, because a part of the challenge that we see and that I am seeing in the field is that some policies need to be adjusted. So I'm working from one level to provide the little that I can, but then policies still need to be changed or adjusted if that's going to be sustained. So already, and this is not even something about tomorrow. Already we have started that.
Good.
That's one of the reasons I was very interested in the small groups. So at the community level, we are already doing stakeholder forums and meetings. And that's why the civic education is part of our comprehensive training curriculum. So it's not just me knowing how to engage community and engage leadership. It's also the rural women understanding how their relationship and their voices matter.
Okay,
So
good.
we already started.
Good. Thank you. I think, the things that I've been saying, were written in my dissertation. And then, for example, in the Philippines, because of the work of a network organization like APEN. APEN is a learning organization, an implementing organization as well. So because of the advocacy work, we're able to legislate, a
Yes.
law protecting and strengthening the non-government organizations with microfinance operations for the poor. And you're absolutely on the right track. So I will be praying for Give Care, and I'm excited to see Give Care's activity, with you as its leader. Dr. Bill and Dr. Sam, I will have to run to my next meeting if I can be excused. Is it okay if I can leave the meeting room? As the first reader of Scholastica's dissertation, I just congratulate her and her wonderful work. You're on the right track. Give Care is sitting in God's mighty hand, and Give Care will do wonders in Nigeria. And I will be monitoring Scholastica, if you will allow me, the accomplishments of Give Care. And I would love to hear more of your activities and accomplishments and how God works with Give Care. Okay?
I will be very glad. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Penn, you're not on. Your mic is not on.
I was saying it's a little bit out of the ordinary, but we'll probably need to work by email if you're going to need to leave the session, because we're actually required to have an evaluation session with the second reader, the advisor, and myself as the BTU rep. So
yes.
If you need to leave now, I may meet with Dr. Nick for a few minutes, and then we will send our results to you, and then they won't be final until you've been able to look at those.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure. Do I need to, grade Scholastica's dissertation, Dr. Bill?
Well, yeah, I've been taking notes on an evaluation form that we use for all oral reviews. And so if you're not going to be able to stay we need to do about a 15-minute evaluation session. But if you won't be able to be a participant in that, we'll need to do that by email is what I'm saying.
Please do.
Okay.
I would happy to, of course, I need to evaluate, but I just can't do the evaluation, with the group today. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Understandable, Dr. Virginia. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, I guess Dr. Nick and you and myself, we will need to go ahead and go into a little bit of evaluation session for a few minutes. They won't
Dr.
be.
Ben, can I just, leave Scholastica one thing? I just wanted to mention, definitely from the experience down in Uganda with the women. There's something that was so helpful for me. I did entrepreneurship as a vehicle to empower women in Uganda. And one of the key things that we have established right now is a community savings cooperative for the women. It has really enhanced their ability to be self-sustaining and not rely on loans. So they are able to save for the future, for their children. I don't know if you have implemented or considered that for your situation in Nigeria, but it's something that is so useful in a way. So sorry for not letting you know earlier on, but yeah, this is something that has worked enormously in Uganda. There are savings cooperatives that people, we lend money, we give money, we empower with soft loans. They come together to save for their future. And that way they don't rely on the loans perpetually.
Thank you for that, for that thought. And it's part of our model already. And I attest to just what you're saying, that it's very helpful. What we actually do in addition is that at the end of every loan cycle, say every 6 months, we reward the greatest saver, the person that has saved the most. I usually would match it 100%, just to encourage them to keep saving, because that's a better way. So, yes.
Okay, again, just so that I will follow the protocol of these oral reviews, I'm going to meet with Dr. Nick here for a few minutes. So I'm going to pull Scholastica. I'm going to pull you out of the session for a few minutes, and I'll pull you out too, Dr. Choice, at this moment. But hold on, it'll probably just be a few minutes, and then I'll bring you back in. So don't leave your computer screens, okay? Let's see, who's still back on hold? Scholastica is still on hold. Okay, we'll bring her back in. Scholastica, are you there?
Yeah, here.
Okay, looks like we lost our other groups. All right. Well, first of all, we just want to tell you, you've done really good research work. Just the ability to do research with the 50 women that you're currently working with, and the kind of research you're working with to kind of get an understanding of the thinking of these microfinance institutions. That's excellent kind of research. And so, first of all, I'm just going to tell you, Dr. Nick and I, we're passing you with flying colors, okay? We believe you've done a good job, okay? So we're going to be able to call you Dr. Wilson. What we can't do, we can't give the official evaluative grade yet until we've run these issues by Dr. Wan, since she wasn't able to participate in the evaluation, okay? There'll be a couple of issues we'll want you to add, and we'll put those in writing. Some of it is like, you use a qualitative, quantitative mixed approach, which was good. One of the things we're asking students to do is to try to explain those two methods a little more for, say, a reader who's never heard those terms, okay? So you just say, this is what a quantitative method is, this is what a qualitative method is, and this is why I choose to use a mixture of those methods in my dissertation, in my research. So then a reader can look at that and say, that's what quantitative means, that's what qualitative means. The other main issue I think that we'll ask you to do is just to kind of make a distinction between what has actually been accomplished at this point as of the writing of the dissertation, and then what will be the future outcome as, say, this fundraising project actually becomes a reality, through Give Care. And I'll just put that in writing for you, those two issues.
So when you say what, I was going to ask the question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, so when you say what has been accomplished, would that be in terms of financial goals or the activities of Give Care, our milestones?
I think right now it would be, through this project, because Give Care has been around for a while, it would be in terms of this project. I mean, for an example, through this project, you have established a whole development detailed plan, right? And that happened as a result. You did that in the process of this project, as I understand it, right? That fundraising project, it'll go to your board in December, okay? And then so that fundraising plan, if they accept it, it'll actually get implemented after the board has approved that. Would that be true? The plan is developed, but it's not approved yet.
Yeah, my research said the framework. So yes, the framework in a how do I put it? Yes, the framework of the plan has been developed.
Right.
On how we will do and what we will do and a figure for the budgets.
Good.
Although, in the thesis already, I had detailed 15 stakeholders that were selected as an outcome that have indicated interest from the meetings, thinking through, the fundraising thing.
Right.
And I put a list of the organizations, tried to doctor the names a bit in the appendix. I also detailed the use of technology like a multimedia program together with traditional fundraising and the partnership of partners, for-profit and non-profit alike, right, as part of the strategy, and actually put figures to what I'm expecting from them. Right. And that's in the fundraising plan section. Right. I also added on that section the biblical understanding that undergirds our fundraising methods, what we believe and how we would raise them God's way.
Right.
So and then I put in the communication plan some activities I think should happen. And of course, the board is going to input in that plan to say, oh, this looks good, or maybe we should add this as well. Maybe we should, and when I say I detail, in the narrative of the plan, you will see where there would be like annual meetings or stakeholder dinner or, well, those kind of things with specific contacts as to when suggested times of the year as to when we would meet and how the progress of monitoring the money that we're raising would look like. Mm-hmm. So I'm saying all of this to ask, what in addition would you be looking for when you talk about fleshing out or adding, to the fundraising plan?
No, I'm not asking for any addition to the plan.
Okay.
It's getting down just to how you organize that information in the last 3 chapters of the dissertation. Right now, in chapter 5, I have to go back and look at it. Under the intervention, you actually talked more about some data gathering that you did through a survey, and then you talked about those. That would not be appropriate for the intervention section. The intervention for your plan, and that's all still part of the data gathering. For your project, the development plan is the major intervention that you've developed. You've developed that plan. That is the major intervention. And then, you can say that, give a few paragraphs about that in the intervention section, and then refer your reader to your appendix for the full description of the whole plan. It just gets down to how you organize that information. See what I mean? And I'm going to put that down in writing so you can maybe hopefully see that fairly clearly.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So yeah, it's not. You've done a fantastic plan. Wonderful. It's just how we organize that into those last couple chapters of the dissertation, just to make sure that we, So what you have to do, you're going to graduate on June 2nd. I've got quite a few students who are in this situation where we've given them some recommendations, just like I'm giving you, and we just need to have those completed by June 30th, so that when we send these dissertations off to the bindery, we're all satisfied with everything about that it's perfect. Right. It really represents you and represents the school. Okay, so that's what that's all about. But I'll put that all in writing so you can kind of just tweak those sections a little bit, so that we can make sure that we've got a good organization. Okay. All right. But yeah, you're passed. We can call you a doctor, and I'm just really congratulating on you.
Congratulations.
The level of work that you've done, it was just really, really fun. Okay. And I get to see a lot of dissertations, and your level of work was excellent. Okay. And just the information you gathered. One question I didn't get to ask you is, in terms of your own personal learning, how would you describe that in terms of this whole process you've come through? And that's one of the questions we have to answer on the form. Just how have you grown by going through the BGU process and culminating in this dissertation?
A whole lot. A whole lot. Working in a community oftentimes comes with a lot of assumptions. And, in my notes, as I'm, just writing diaries down, I would say, oh, BGU was right. BGU was right. BGU was right, most of the time. And why would I say that? Listening more than engaging before I actually hear the situation speak back to me. Now, situations look like they're not alive there, but situations speak back because you're dealing with an ecosystem of people, of experiences that are, all mingling together to deliver the kind of order or disorder that exists in a community. And I have seen more, over and over how a judgment too early had actually turned into, if I had made the judgment earlier than I did, it turned into an outcome that I would not have expected. So, and I, most of the time, or more of the time, I was able to escape those loopholes because of the training to listen. So a practical example would be when I was gathering data for the needs assessment, I was having sometimes conflicting information about the history of the place. But that would be because I had to learn by experience that some people had a character of always saying they knew, even when they didn't know. It was a cultural thing that they couldn't admit, that, well, I'm not so sure about that. Maybe you should go to this place or go to this other person or check this fact, right? And I found out by experience that that was something that was cultural. So when it came to some types of groups of people, I would have to find information 2-3 places and verify before adopting or taking action on a matter, And then also issues of perception. in different cultures have things that undergird their behavior. So sometimes you feel because I am fast, I am on time, and all that type of thing. They do things in a laid back way. Therefore, you know, they're not going to end up at the place where you want them. And so I'm trying to force down a Western culture. And it's not like managing time is not right, or, you know, doing it exactly the way I think is orderly is not right.
Right.
But, you know, I lose the people if it has to be done my way with my kind of finesse. So I hear their hearts, and I'm focused more on the goal. And I listen and I watch how, you know, how their culture handles the activities, but only getting to the same point.
Right.
So I was more of a learner in this process, and, you know, really participating past from behind. So my actions were more learning and facilitating than actually leading in a more active way, because I had to learn their language.
Right.
So they are subtle things, but they're very important because they could be very frustrating, and you know, it makes all the difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. When we talk about contextual leadership, I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about knowing the culture where we're trying to make a difference. And then you have to contextualize what you're doing within the framework, the norms, the values of that people. Or like you say, you lose them because, you know, and we used to say trying to, you know, put a square peg in a round hole, that kind of a mentality. Yeah, I hear you.
And that's a great lesson, Dr. Wilson, because you're not doing it for you, you're doing it for them. It's their project. And knowing their language, knowing their values goes a long ways. You know, as scripture says, you don't throw pearls to swines. Precious things, you know, those are precious people. And if you're going to invest your life in their life, you might want as well to know, are they going to value your life? Do they value the values you value? And how you know, that entire context informs the intervention strategies that you're going to implement there. And the end goal is not, you know, determined by how we start, but how that project is going to live through the generations, from generations to generations. And you're impacting people eternally, to eternity. And your holistic approach, you know, does not end in their pocket. It goes to change their values. They will change their children's values. Entire villages are changing, and entire nation can change. You know, if you don't listen, that change can come painfully. I mean, and that can be frustrating as well, many times. So congratulations on, you know, on your journey there.
Thank you.
Amen.
Thank you.
Amen. Well, I need to leave the session. I so appreciate getting it together with you all. And like I say, we will get the official results and things out by email, just after I've been able to contact Dr. Juan. Glad that we finally got through all the technology today. That was a challenge.
Thank you for your patience. Yeah.
Oh,
Thank
There's
you.
a storm here. There's been a storm here, and I just prayed that, you know, the internet doesn't cut off, you know.
Yes. Yes.
And the power isn't, you know, in the neighborhood, there's no power here, but the hotel has power.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you, Lord. That the Lord is keeping your power going.
yep.
All right. Well, goodbye for now. I've got to end this section. I kind of gone over my Zoom time limit, but again, thanks again for being all of you with us.
Thanks and congratulations, Scholastica.
Thank you.